one of the jewels is that it's really important, like Kathy said, to have at least one doctor that's supportive of you, meaning that they need to understand the quality of your life. Like, what are your limitations? What it is that you experience every day that you go through? That's so important, because they'll be better doctors when they understand that, look, I can't shower every day. Okay. A small thing that you would do, a person like the normies, I call them normies, the things that they would do, so 1 second, that they would do that would not cost them any energy drain, costs us drain. So if I do the laundry, I have to do it in shifts, or if I do something, I have to go lay down for an hour or so. Those are important things for the doctors and your medical providers and your family to know, that this type of life that we live is different. It's not that we're lazy. It's the energy level. It's the pain. It's the GI issues, all culminating all together, causing quite a low quality of life. So the better that they understand that, the more they'll get into the documentation and also support you and how you feel. And that's powerful, because if you have them on your side, and you have a better chance of getting approved. Looking at the listing of impairments to see if you qualify and meet any of the severity of the listing. The listing of impairments is part of the Social Security Administration's, they call it the Blue Book. You could go on to www.ssa.gov and look under the listings to see, well, I have anxiety and depression, let's say. Do I meet the severity of the listing? Because if you do, then you could get approved. That's the purpose of the listing of impairments. Another one is a compassion allowance list. That's a list of conditions that get a more of a fast track review. Unfortunately, right now, Marfan's, Ehlers-Danlos, and Ehlers-Danlos are not on that list. And that's something that me and my colleagues are working on that, trying to get that done. But we've already, as you know by the report, that's going to greatly help, but the compassion allowance is separate. Kathy, you want to add anything to that?
No, why don't you read the third question?
Okay, third question. I applied for SSDI and my bank account was too high for SSI, so I am looking at creating I think she meant an ABLE account, then reapplying. SSDI was dependent on proving I've been disabled prior to 2013 because I don't seem to have enough work credits. It was denied. I did an appeal adding in my last employer, which is 3 to 5 hours a week, and back in 2011, that's a long time ago, who validated that I couldn't meet up and had to leave early due to the IBS and migraines. That's important. Yesterday was the cutoff for applying for an AL judge appointment. I couldn't find a lawyer to go after that historic disability. Basically, what they're looking for is advice as to, I believe this person, I asked them to contact me directly, and then I would go over with them what my suggestions were and how to improve the chances of getting approved. Anything you want to add, Kath?
Yeah, so SSDI is based on your work credits, and I've seen this happen a lot. Basically, people, because of the nature of EDS and because of not having a diagnosis, they don't apply for disability right away. And then years go by, and then their work credits don't exist anymore for SSDI. It's incredibly, incredibly difficult to go back in time and prove you were disabled, okay? In this case, if 2013, that would be 10 years ago. So unless you have really, really strong medical evidence that goes before that period of time, it's extremely difficult to prove a disability 10 years ago.
Yeah. The other jewels that I wanted to share is that other than quality of life, which is a big one, is that you do want to look at your medical records, all of them, and see if there's anything in there that is not accurate, that is not true. they put something in there about you being hysterical, or this is being Munchausen, or these are things that you have to review, and how you deal with that is you would get your doctors now to basically write something up stating this isn't accurate. Because what they say, current doctors have far more weight than doctors of the past, so that's really, really important that you review your documents. And then you can always ask me, and I can kind of walk you through how to make the addition to the record. Because Social Security, I don't want to sound like they're evil, but they're going to look, see anything and use anything that they can to turn you down. Okay. But that's why we want to make sure we have all the ammunition and everything set up front that we can counter anything that they say or do. So the next question was actually, I wrote that one for you. I mean, I didn't write it, but it was a question for Kathleen. How does the National Academy's groundbreaking report help my previously denied disability claim now? Years after denial, I was finally diagnosed with EDS and all the rare comorbidities, besides the damage that we are still uncovering from a brain injury that they had. Unfortunately, I'm still not able to work, and her attorney is going to be appealing. So basically, what she's looking to see is if this report could be of any benefit. What do you think, Kathleen?
Yeah, I actually at this point I'm submitting the report with all of my disability cases. As John said, it is really lengthy. So when I submit it, I usually say go to page whatever.
Yep.
This is huge. This report is just absolutely amazing and beneficial to us. So if you're in the process of applying for disability, I would have your attorney, at least suggest to them that they submit it as evidence.
And then you yourself, you can go into the report and pick out pieces that you could give to your doctors, and that's been done more recently now. And it's much more credible when they go, oh, where did this come from? Oh, wow, okay. Because like we always get, the doctors always say, where's the research? When you mention something that is true, and they're like, oh crap, and you're trying to scramble for research that'll back up what you're dealing with or what you're going through. This is something that was done, as I described, at the highest level. So this is information they can't combat. It's just accurate. The next question. Once I'm approved, is SSDI forever? Assuming you continue to be disabled, does disability stop at any point and you get switched to regular or SS retirement at a particular age? You want to pick that one, Kath?
Yeah, so basically you would get disability retirement, disability until your full retirement age, which is approximately 67. And then disability turns to retirement. My experience has been that the amount is basically the same.
Mm-hmm. And also for those of you, I hope it doesn't ever happen to you, it happened to you, but if you do, if they socially writes you and says, we think you can work once you're on Social Security, that's when you get your doctors involved. And the doctor should write up basically that since you were approved as of this date, you haven't, these are all the things that have happened since then. So basically showing you haven't improved, you've actually degenerated further. And I've been still batting 1,000 with getting it reversed because that's really the main thing, just showing you have not improved. What happens if your diagnosis changes? For example, if someone originally was awarded SSDI for disabling psychiatric issues, for which they were heavily medicated and being treated, and then years later the person gets an EDS diagnosis that is found to have mast cell, dysautonomia, chronic pain, et cetera, a lot of the other comorbidities. and they remain disabled with symptoms being treated by several specialists. It is a long question, but basically saying is, how do you deal with that? What do you think, Kath?
So it doesn't matter unless you're going to be reviewed, unless they're going to try to take away your Social Security, and then you can add those new diagnoses.
Yeah, and all the reviews, that's a good one. Because you do get a review. It all depends upon what they choose as a date. Could be 3 years from the time you were approved, could have been a year from the time you were approved. Social Security will send you. And if you have a policy, your own policy, disability policy, you'll get reviews. Sometimes they do it every year, which is ridiculous because I still get those. But Social Security's one, basically what you're just saying is that this is what I'm going through now, or, just in the ER the last, 2 times in the last 6 months for this and this and that. You're basically just updating them and saying, I'm not getting any better. I'm actually getting worse. And that's really important. And that's usually that's all they want. And then that goes to whatever next review, or depending upon what they saw in your file of what to do. But that's a great way to deal with that. Those
Yeah,
are
I
the
think
main.
with the review, it's the same thing as when you're applying. If you have a doctor's support, you're going to be okay.
Yeah, and those are the main questions. The thing is that with one thing, I know this is going to sound almost impossible, but if you have a doctor that is supportive, that understands your limitations, or better yet, a doctor that has a lot of experience with these conditions, that's willing to not only write something up, but maybe even, Kathleen, you can jump in on this one, is it maybe even be present on a virtual hearing on your behalf. That can be very powerful. You want to talk about that, Kathleen?
Yeah, I mean, that's huge, but it's a big step for a doctor to do that. I mean, they're all, they're under time restraints. And but no, obviously if you can have your doctor testify for you, that's a big plus.
And it's usually not that long, right, Kathleen? Like 15, 20 minutes?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's that, and especially with virtual hearings, which we all, one thing that good has come from the pandemic is the fact that the virtual hearings have been a boon to people like Kathleen and others, that lawyers, that they don't have to travel, and they can just handle, because she handles SSDI and SSI is federal. That's another thing I should say. A lot of people don't realize that. That's like, well, can Kathleen represent me in Alaska? Yeah, it's federal law. So, but what the beauty of this is, lawyers from all over the country now that have trouble with mobility or have issues with, they're just individual lawyers, that this gives them a greater ability to represent people that don't have proper representation. And one other thing is that I want to just throw a bunch of stuff popping in my head is that people ask me, like, who should I use? And I'll say, it doesn't matter the firm, doesn't matter the size of the firm, it matters who the attorney is. That's what the most important thing. So if you have someone that has won these cases, the condition that you have, that then go with them. And I always tell people to ask their local support groups to see if they have an attorney locally that has won cases and that they like, because like I said, I never push anyone into Kathleen's arms. That's up to the individual. Let me see. Anything else, Kathleen, as far as ideas, things you want to bring?
Some questions in the chat room.
Oh, okay.
Can you maybe read those to us?
Yep, I can do that.
Okay.
Starting from the top, and it's going to take me a hot minute because some people responded to each other.
Oh, okay.
So I just have to, which is fine, guys. That's fine.
Yeah. Let's face it. I think I've learned more from all of you than I have learned from other sources. We know a lot dealing with the condition.
So first question I see is from Meg, and a couple people answered this person. The main question is, I have a question. If it can't be answered, it's okay. I was just recently approved for SSDI. I will have a review in 3 years. what is there to know about the review? And people just kind of chimed in with their own experiences. But if you guys want to answer that as well.
Yeah, I think we talked about that. You know, as long as you have a doctor who's supportive, I mean, I think you're going to be okay.
Yeah. And for me, when I got my first one, I'd already got 2 new diagnoses, major arrhythmia, 3 hospital stays in 12 months. So I just put that all in there and no problems, no problems. And the other thing I want to say is, because this is important too, is that Social Security cannot use the excuse that you haven't seen many doctors in the last 3 years against you because it's the pandemic. I mean, that's the reasoning behind it. Not that you are not sick, not that you cannot, do something, or it's because of the situation.
Second question that I see. Can you revise your initial application after it's been denied? Like change the doctors and the verbiage?
So I guess it depends on where in the process you are. But you can always add new information and new diagnosis. Yes, absolutely.
All the way up to the date of the hearing, right, Kath?
Yeah.
What are the resources counted other than an up to $2,000 bank account and a car that would disqualify you from SSI?
And just about anything. For SSI, you can't have more than 2,000 in a bank account, and you can have a house if it's your primary residence and a car. Other than that, everything counts as a resource.
Okay, so just piggybacking off that question, they still count things like savings accounts or investment accounts as resource.
Yes, absolutely.
Unfortunately, yeah.
So
That's where
disabled people can never save up for emergencies.
That's why they now have the ABLE account, that you can, keep money in there safely without counting it as a resource. Unfortunately, right now, the ABLE account, you have to prove you were disabled before, I think it's like 26 or 27, but that's going to change in 2 years to 46. So that'll help people.
Wow, good. I didn't know that. And yeah, go ahead, Ab.
Oh, did you want to add on to that? I was going to go on to the next question.
Yeah, I'm just going to say that, the more information you can provide that deals with your limitations, because when people say, well, if I submit this thing about mast cell or dysautonomia or this, it says it has to be specific to you having that limitation. That's important because they don't want to read something about what this is. They want to know, do you have the severity of the condition and how is it affecting you? And there was another thought and I just went on in my head. So Abby, you go ahead.
Okay. Can Social Security request CPS records, medical child abuse? If so, what impact does this have?
Mm-hmm.
So they request information from your medical providers. So I guess the question would be, is there information from your medical providers that is in that area?
With the current question about changing diagnosis, can adding the EDS diagnosis later on increase the benefit amount?
No, your benefit amount is stuck on how much you put into the system.
Right.
Okay.
Now, Kathy, what about, because I think sometimes I ask you for the clarification. What happens if someone is trying to get on their parents' Social Security? What are the stipulations for that?
If you have a parent who is deceased, disabled, or on full-time retirement for Social Security, and you can prove you were disabled before the age of 23, you can get benefits under their work credits.
When not qualifying for SSI, but waiting on a parent to retire for SSDI to kick in, childhood onset of illness and never entered workforce, is someone allowed to work 5 to 10 hours per week, or would that impact their future qualification?
So basically, the number changes every year, but if you're making more than $1,300 a month in employment, you're automatically not disabled. So sounds like
Yeah.
15, yeah,
Craziness. That's
15
just,
to 20 hours wouldn't make a difference.
yeah. I mean, that's absurd. Oh, there's a million things that we're trying to work on, but that's one that just, who can live on that kind of money? I mean,
I find it so wild that
it is.
disability, you're required to be basically at the poverty line for
Right.
disability, and you can never go beyond that without losing everything.
Right.
Well, that's all the more reason why I always say this, instead of us, instead of people complaining about something, do something about it. And that's why, like with the 2-year wait period for people, when you get approved and you have to wait 2 years to get Medicare, that should be wiped out. That should never be, should be to get it right away. So Maria Pollack, she's the one of the driving forces, and I'm working with her to change that in the Social Security system. Also, the 5 month, like when you get approved, you don't get paid the first 5 months. I'm like, why is that? That doesn't make any sense. And then I finally found out why. It's because they assume, what happens if you get better? How do you get better from being permanently disabled in 5 months? That's just absurdity. But I'll say one more thing as far as quality of life, because I just realized another part of quality of life that's really important is fatigue. In my medical advocacy work, I've gotten a lot of doctors on board with understanding our quality of life by saying, I feel like every day I have a cold or a flu, because they understand. They've all had colds and flus. As far as the weakness, the achiness, the disorientation, the effort that it takes to sometimes just go from the bed to the bathroom, the effort just to wake up, to dress yourself. Those are really important things, because that goes into not only disability, but it goes into your medical support from your providers.
All right. I was just approved for Social Security 2 weeks ago. I have a 401k with $2,000 in it. Does that count under this $2,000 limit in bank accounts? I think that it does from what you said, but I want to confirm.
Yeah, I guess the question were you approved for SSDI or SSI? SSDI, it doesn't matter how much money you have. That's when you put into the system and you have enough work credits. SSI, it would count.
How does the medical record request process work in regards to diagnoses spanning since infancy? We have been seen at major medical facilities. Many were not helpful, but some records may be helpful. Document length of symptoms, etc. How do you narrow Social Security's focus to the relevant records supporting disability eligibility? The concern is that they will get lost in the volume of unhelpful records. Will they accept the records I feel are supportive relevant? And can you speak about if Social Security requires an evaluation by one of their doctors? Does that doctor have to have experience in the disability specialty? So it was like 5 questions in one. But if I recall, they'll get all of the records, and the entire point is that they will use those unhelpful records against you because they do not want to give you Social Security.
And that's why they want you to review your records. Yeah, go, Kath, and then I'll go after you.
Yeah, I mean, it depends again on where in the process you are. If you're in the beginning process, it's hard to really control what they're basing their decision on. If you're going in front of a judge, then it's a little easier to kind of focus the attention on what's relevant.
Yeah, no, they used, the reason I'm incredibly unlucky is because I got a bad judge, but they used a single record against me from a really rude doctor and just wiped out my entire medical history because of one document, because they had like a single one that they could say, oh, no, this proves it. So they will use everything against you. And in the United States, patients can't amend their own medical records.
Right.
Well, one thing I'm hoping that's going to come from the report is the fact that judges will have much more less room to make bad decisions, because there's going to be now something that they're supposed to reference. Kathy, agree with that? That could very well be a positive, because Abby's right. I mean, there are judges that are just, their approval rates are extremely low, which angers me, because I know I've been doing this for so long, and very few people come in front of me for my help that are just full of crap. Okay, very, very few, very few. Everyone is not well, is not able to work. And the judges who have approval rate of 24%, I mean, they shouldn't be sitting on the bench, because it's not a bench, Kathy, right? They shouldn't be in that position to judge someone's life.
Yes.
Are you required to be seen by a doctor of their specialty? I was required to see a psychologist for the court, so.
Yeah, this is glad you read that, because it just dawned on me. The doctors that you will be seeing, majority of them have no experience with the conditions. Marfan, EDS, Ehlers-Danlos, even the comorbidities. A lot of them have very little or none. So I always tell people when I prep them, when they go into these appointments, is to talk about the limitations in regards to who they're seeing. So if it's a psychiatric, if it's a psychiatrist, then talk about the conditions that they have and how it affects them. But specifically, something that will give it strength. You know what I mean? But Kathy, you want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, I mean, they're, you know, these doctors don't know absolutely anything about any kind of rare disorder. They're basically your, you know, primary care physician. And yeah, so I would agree with that. Focus on the limitations.
Yeah, I have to say this, when only one exception, 22 years I've been doing this, is the doctor that they saw, actually her son had Ehlers-Danlos. That was beautiful, because there was no having to explain. So,
How much rent needs to be being paid to get the full amount of SSI? I don't quite understand.
That doesn't really go into the analysis. The only thing is, if you are living with a parent, your SSI can be reduced by 1/3, because they're providing, you know, room and board for you, I guess is the you know, analysis of that.
In regards to medical records, is mental health stigma something that SSDI reviewers can be influenced by? Can it hurt our application if we have depression, anxiety, etc. on our medical records? Personally speaking, yes. Officially speaking, I don't know.
and you have to have the severity of it. So if you don't have the severity of it, they're going to key on that, and they're going to say, well, you say you have anxiety and depression, but you're not taking a medication for it, or you're not seeing a psychiatrist, and they'll use that against you. Kath, what are you going to say?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's out there. Again, as you said earlier, anybody with a chronic illness probably has depression and anxiety as part of it. So, I mean, I think we, you know, for the most part, it's out there, and you know, you should provide the records for that. But you know, the physical complications are, you know, are what is important.
And if you go over the listing of impairments, like I discussed, the SSA.gov listings, and you see a listing that you think you fit the severity, bring that to your doctor. And if they agree with you, they will write up something saying, this is my patient, I feel meets the requirements in this listing. That could greatly improve your chances of being approved.
How do you balance being honest with your provider, example, a comorbid condition doing better on a new medication, while making sure there isn't anything in the medical records that shows improvement?
So I think, you know, obviously the most important thing here is your care. So, you know, you have to be honest with your doctor And anything that is problematic in your records, can be explained or presented to a judge as to, why that was said. So the most important thing is that you're honest with your doctor.
And the other thing is that whatever improved, did that take you to now are you able to work? I mean, it only changed one minor thing in your life. So that's the whole thing is, can they work 40 hours? Because that's the whole thing about disability. It's very simple. Can you work 40 hours a week for a year or more? If you can't, then you are deemed disabled. So just because something improved, your sleep is better now, or so-and-so is better, but has it taken you to a point where now I can go back to work? No, the burden of proof falls upon them, not you, on them, the government, to prove that otherwise.
And something that I've learned through the entire process is that what matters the most is your ADLs, or I think that's what they're called, but it's like the
Activity, daily
your
living.
daily tasks.
Yes.
So like when I was really bad off and I was trying to get Social Security with John and Kathy, I couldn't really even brush my teeth every single day. I couldn't feed myself every day. I couldn't even feed myself like once a week. I
Right.
couldn't, I was only able to shower, and I'm admitting this with no shame. Sometimes it got to once a month. That's just what happened.
Wow. Oh,
So like,
yeah.
what matters most is, are you getting to a point where you're able to be like a functional adult? And if the answer is no,
Mhm.
then that improvement is only really helping you try to be a functioning adult.
Yes, very true, very true. And the other thing for children, I and Kathleen, you know this. I stress this more and more to families, is when they're filling out information about their children, and they're dealing with a condition that can be, they have to have testing yearly or more than, they need to state that, because that's really important. So getting the Social Security approved is almost extremely necessary if the child is going to be safe. So let's say with Marfan syndrome or Loeys-Dietz syndrome or EDS vascular, they specifically require cardiovascular testing and certain specific testing regularly, and of course with hypermobility, there's multiple testing that's really required. So that's just a key thing. I think a lot of people miss is discussing that area. That's really, really important. I've talked to Dart, and then Dart is the reason why I push this. As I said, please put in your documentation that they require the following testing every year. So by not being approved, they're putting jeopardy, they're adding jeopardy to that family's life, or that child's life.
And yeah, there's no shame in possibly only being able to shower once a month. I just, sidebar, no shame in it. Everyone here has done it. I promise. And it's a matter of time. I was talking to a friend of mine who has a more recent diagnosis of CFS, and she expressed to me a lot of embarrassment and shame for needing help out of the bathtub. And I told her, I'm like, I am incredibly different from how I was when I was a teenager. Because when I was a teenager was when I couldn't shower more than like once a month. Now, as someone who's going to be 27 this year, that is a very different story. I can shower once a week. And for me, that is a drastic improvement. So time, adaptivity to everything can help you personally better your quality of life over time. And just being patient with yourself for that is critical.
Yes.
My favorite saying comes from a skincare channel: progression over perfection, because perfection doesn't exist.
True.
All right, so back to the questions. Can you reside in another country besides the US while receiving disability? If so, how are reviews handled?
So if it's SSDI, then it's like Social Security retirement, and yes, you would be able to. And I guess the review would be the same, just in terms of having the doctor's support that you haven't improved.
Would being a full-time student, example 4 classes per semester, equate to working full-time? Or is it better to remain part-time? Online schooling doesn't feel equal to a 40-hour work week, but how does SSA view this? If you're able to do full-time school, I am so jealous.
So technically it doesn't count, and obviously you're not working, you don't have an income. However, you know, like anything else, if you get to a judge and you're testifying that, or there's information that you're a full-time student, then there's sort of a bias. Like, okay, if you can do that, then why can't you work 40 hours a week?
They used a sport that I did against me, and that sport is pageantry, which means I am active for 1 week out of the year. 1 week.
Yep.
And they are like, well, if you can do pageantry, you can work. I'm like, I put on a dress once a year.
Well, see, that's a great point, because pageantry, it's not full-time. It's not consistently full-time, 40 hours a week, 40, 40, 40. Just like school. You can go to school and file for Social Security or be approved for Social Security going to school, because school doesn't take 40 hours a week. And it's just sad when anyone thinks differently, especially if anyone works in government that thinks that way, because they need to read a book about Social Security, because that's not the way it works.
I basically describe the process as your lawyers are there for you, but the court itself does not want to help you. That's like their job. Like, their job is not to let you get disability. You have to basically corner them.
Well, it also comes down to, like I said about the report, is that a lot of judges wrote to Social Security complaining that they knew off the cuff that there were other judges not approving. And, I mean, there are some good, I guess I'm saying there are some good people, but that's why you need to be as organized as possible, have as many details as possible, and be prepared, and have your team. But even so, you can still lose if the judge is not a good judge as far as approval rate. And hopefully that's going to change, like I said, with the report.
I mean, the bottom line is, when you get a judge that only approves 20% of the people that come before them, that's pretty bad.
A tax question. I was denied for my first attempt at SSI. Everyone is. I still hope I can join the workforce and contribute maybe 20 hours a week. But for now, I am fully dependent on my parents. Can my parents file tax and list me as a dependent? Yes. My mom does it.
Yes.
Yep, that's just a straight yes. And she enjoys doing that every single year. I'm not working at all, by the way. And for those with like a lot of mental stress about not being able to work, I had to do a lot of deconstructing that my worth is not my financial output. That me as a person, I am not lesser because I can't work. In doing that, I have found a lot of peace in myself. I've made my own balcony garden. I have started to cook again, and I do the household accounting. There is a lot you can do for those around you, even if it's just being a good friend, child, partner, parent, that makes you just as worthy as somebody making physical money. And that needs to be really, really hammered home, because I struggled with that a lot, especially when I became engaged. And that is the primary thing that my future in-laws criticize, that I am just a burden to my fiance when I am not.
Well, understanding what you're dealing with, Abby, and everyone, is that we have an invisible disability. But we're not going to be able to change anyone's mind unless they're willing to listen. What we can do is provide as much information as possible about our quality of life and how it affects us, and the fact that we want to be working. We want to be working. We want to be able to do a lot of things that we cannot do. Our body does not allow us to do. So that's why it's super imperative at any level, whether it be Social Security, whether it be doctors, whether it be family, whether it be anything, is to get it clear as to what you're dealing with, what your life is like, so they understand, what it is like to live in our bodies, what it is like not be able to take a shower every day, or what it is like to not be able to go to a friend's barbecue, or many things. So, Kath, did you have anything you wanted to add, or?
Do you have any other questions, or?
We have tons coming in, but I'm going to give Kat an opportunity.
Okay.
You've been waiting a while.
Like when I reach retirement age, which right now is in a couple years,
Yeah, so
and
basically,
I've been on SSDI since '95.
right, so at your full retirement age, which is probably around 67,
Yeah,
you'll go from disability retirement to traditional retirement.
do they maintain the amount you're getting?
The amount usually is basically the same.
Oh, okay, good. Okay, thanks.
Maybe more of a statement than a question, but how do you even figure out what your body is capable of doing without jeopardizing the worst case scenario precautions and not accidentally proving otherwise? Feeling very lost in the benefits cliff of being dependent in my upper 20s. Same. I think it goes back to ADLs personally, what your daily life tasks look like, because believe it or not, a able-bodied adult is able to wake up, feed themselves, shower, brush their teeth, brush their hair, feed pets if they have them, take pet on a walk, do laundry, and go to work.
Well,
I can do like 2 of those things.
the major jewel, a major crux of being able to work or not being able to work is what you provide if you're at a workplace. If you have to go to the bathroom 6 or 7 times a day, not going to be very good. The employer's not going to like that. If you can't stand or sit for so long, it ain't going to work in most environments. And you add to that on and on and on. So basically you become to a point where you can't keep a full-time job. Part-time is different. That's not full-time. Social Security is whether you can work full-time, not part-time. So just want to throw that out there too.
Say you have been on SSDI, then get better and rejoin the workforce. Can you become subsequently disabled if your conditions worsen again? If so, is it the same as if applying for the first time?
No, it's a lot easier to get back on because they know that you've made an attempt. That's a good thing.
Question regarding SSDI approval. I brought a residual functional capacity form to a doctor and also had a form for the doctor which went through limitations such as missing 4 days a week or month. This helped my case. Is the residual function capacity forms just as important for recertification when up for disability review?
Yeah, absolutely. If you have a doctor that's willing to complete that form at your review, that can be really, really important.
And also as important is if you have a doctor that has multiple EDS, Marfan, Lestitz patients, that's even more beneficial because they should have far more experience than someone that doesn't. So that can be very helpful too. Although Kathleen has run into every once in a while a judge being very disrespectful to a doctor with experience. But
That
Kathleen,
me, I'm that example.
Kathleen always loves it when they have someone on their side that comes in, like a doctor that knows supposed to know a certain condition, because she grills like the hell out of them. Like, well, how many patients do you have? You know, so that's really important because a counselor, your attorney at the hearing has to be prepared, and they have to be your voice in addition to what you have to say, and also prep you accordingly. So, any other questions?
And I would recommend anyone who's going through this process to take this new report, this new study. I think John sent the link.
I did.
To their doctor, if the doctor's not really, not willing to be with you on this. It's a really long report, as John said, so you can probably go through it and sort of say, what exactly you want them to concentrate on. But I think
Take segments out. You don't, because the whole report, a lot of doctors will see that report and go, I'm not going to read this. I don't have time. That's when you take out sections that are pertinent to what you want to bring up or what you want them to do or write. That's what they will appreciate that. Like Kathy said, the page, and then or copy the page and give it to them.
Can you be an SSDI recipient and work part-time, say in a virtual setting?
yes, of course, it depends on how much money you're making. So
yeah. Yes, and that's another thing of ridiculousness, is I could easily do a consulting work and make over $1,300 in a week. But if I go over that amount, I lose my benefits. I mean, what? So I can work 8 hours for a month and make $4,000 or $5,000. But if I did that, they would say, you can work, you're no longer qualified. Like, no, I can't. I can't work 40 hours a week. So, drives me crazy. That's why advocacy is so important. Fighting for our rights and fighting for each other's rights.
Called SSA and they informed of my first review date for approving benefits. Does this date ever change? And how many days does SSA send you notice for review, i.e. do they give you 30 days notice for you to return forms? The above question is for renewing benefits approval years after being approved.
So they always give you, 10 days to respond to something when you just received it, day 5. So I wouldn't be too worried about, when you get it, work on it and get it back to them as soon as possible.
And keep copies of everything, please. And everything you do, keep copies of everything. Don't leave anything to your memory. And this goes not only with disability, this goes along with medical advocacy, or if you're dealing with the insurance company on anything, trying to, find whoever you spoke to, have their name, their phone number, their extension, their email, as much as possible, because then the power comes when you have to get something done. You'll have a chain of people you can utilize in your CC format for your email. I have gotten so many people approved for reversal of insurance claims, support in their state. I just want to throw that out there. It's really, really one of the big jewels that I have is to do that. It's worked tremendously.
Is it helpful to have multiple supportive doctors to collaborate on the letter for Social Security? If so, what should be included and what should not be said?
All depends upon the limitation that you're covering on the condition, right? The severity, Kath?
Yeah, I think it's probably a little difficult to get doctors to collaborate, so to speak. But if they individually are supportive of this and you apply for disability, that's the most important thing.
Is part-time work then measured by money earned versus hours worked when not full-time? Is that for SSI or SSDI or both?
It's for both. And it's the income, it's not about the hours that are worked.
Does Social Security require that you document how your parents help you financially? And they had a secondary question. If your parents pay your rent, your groceries, etc., or do they only look at your bank account?
You know what I wanted to say before I forget, because my all our brain fog goes in and out, is that for parents who have disabled children, it's a great idea to get life insurance policies, large ones, and leave the money into a trust, a special needs trust. So that way their children can have this money, but not lose their benefits, not lose their Social Security benefits. And the money is, Kath, right? It's a monthly allotment. So you can't blow right through the money. They can't blow through $100,000, $200,000, but it's not taxable, right, Kath? And it doesn't affect Social Security.
Correct, a special needs trust. You'd have to see a lawyer that is.
Yeah, that does that.
To answer the original question, I think I had mentioned before, if you're a young adult and you're living with your parents and you're on SSI, your SSI payment is going to be 1/3 less because the parent is providing room and board, so to speak.
My mom, on the thing of life insurance policies, my mom has a whole system set up that if she passes while still working, God forbid, I will receive, I think, like a certain amount of money. But she also made it set up that I don't have to wait for that. I will have cash ready to live off of, because when my grandmother died, everyone getting their inheritances, like my mom has 9 siblings, everyone getting like their portion took like 6 months. So not just having a life insurance policy, but having a way for your disabled child to access money to live off of immediately is also important. And furthermore, if you have the option, my mom has it set up where when she retires, after she passes, I will receive her retirement for the rest of my life.
Right.
So I have basically a guaranteed income due to how my mom set up her retirement. Love you, Mom.
And that's why preparation is so important. It's worth it. It's in anything, to be fully prepared and look into avenues that you may not be aware of that exist. I tell people it's not just state, it's federal. It's good to know. It's good to have a staffer in the governor's office and the federal office staffer, because they know what's available, what isn't available. And those are things that, I've run into this so many times. And I've said this before, we don't live in a country of 50 states. We live in a country of 50 countries, because they're all different. So it's important to know. But you're right, Abby, preparation up front can save so much hassle and so much hardship. Absolutely.
And I am very grateful that I have the privilege of having a supportive parent. Not everyone is able to have that.
True.
But if you are also just as privileged about it as me, definitely look into that option or chat it with your parents about it.
Any other questions?
Yep, there's tons. Is getting a graduate degree, example, master's or PhD, counted against you in the SSA process, assuming no stipend is earned?
Again, technically, it doesn't count against you because you're not working, but there is certainly a bias. I think if a judge looks at you and says, "Oh my God, look what you're doing," and you're going for an advanced degree, why can't you work 40 hours a week?
All right, I lied. There's not tons. That was the last one. My bad.
Well, it's like with a judge visually seeing someone, or like doctors do. Some doctors do. They look at you and you look fine. it comes down to, what are the facts? What does this person have? You know, yeah, I'm going to get my advanced degree, but I'm not going to be able to work full time. You know, I'm
Because
gonna use
again, getting a degree is not 40 hours a week.
not
Right.
40.
Right.
Absolutely. I was going to say in closing that if you need to reach me, I'm easy to be reached by the email. I can set up something to talk to you. If you need to reach Kathleen, you can email Kathleen. You know, I've been doing this work for so long, and when I help people, it's very detailed. So there are some things I'll say really quickly that can help you with future cases, and it's important to, I call it a quality of life statement. It's something that I wrote for myself when I filed, and it's like a page on what my life is like. It was very detailed. That can be very helpful. Kathleen said that even keeping a diary can be helpful, as long as we don't know if the judge will look at it. Some do, right, Kath?
Yeah,
A health diary, but keep it like, you know, things that happen during the day. So she had me keep one, which I fought her at first about doing it because I wasn't good at doing stuff like that, but it is important to do. So, but if you ever need us, you can reach out to us. And Ab, so any other questions, or are we all set to go?
I
for
think
break?
we're all set.